is the knife. So if the knife is like this, if your fingers are this way, then you can cut your finger. But if they're like this, you're able to hold on to the food, but you won't cut your fingers. And if you do, it'll be this part, which is pretty hard to cut anyways. So it's important that you use your hand like this. And it feels weird at first because that's like not natural to cut like with a claw, but it is very helpful if you are cutting a lot of things. I don't know. And so yeah, that's just the way that you want to have your hand when you are cutting foods. Okay, so then the next thing about knives is that it's actually, you have a higher chance of cutting yourself when you're using a dull knife than a sharp knife, because sounds weird, but it's because if you're cutting something with a dull knife, it's not going to cut very well, and you're going to have to put a lot more effort in to cut than to cut whatever you're cutting. And with a sharp knife, it'll just go right through, so you're like, there's more chance of it slipping and falling. Like if you're trying to cut a tomato with a dull knife, it's not gonna go through the skin, it's just gonna cut your finger. So if you have a sharper knife, it's more precise, so you won't cut your fingers as often. I mean, obviously it's a knife and it is sharp, so if you use a knife a lot, you're probably gonna cut yourself, but don't use a dull knife. Have a knife sharpener. Make sure your knife is sharp. Okay? And then also cross-contamination. Literally saying that just is so annoying because I've taken that damn test so many times. But anyways, cross-contamination is when, let's say you have an allergy to peanuts. A lot of people do. And you have peanuts on a plate, or no, a better example. You have gloves on because, you know, you have to wear gloves for when, if you work in a restaurant at least. So let's say you have gloves on and you're making something with peanut butter. Okay, and then you're also making food for someone who's deathly allergic to peanut butter. You have to take your gloves off and wash your hands, because then you're gonna get the peanut butter on whatever else you're making. And same thing, like if peanut butter touches a plate or a spoon or whatever, you can't use it for the person who's allergic to peanuts. And that's the same with like raw meat and whatever is like toxic. There's a lot of things, but yeah, that's an important one. Then you also have, okay, I'm sorry, that was wrong. That was cross contact. Cross contact is with allergies. Cross contamination is with raw meats. So basically, you if you have a cutting board and you're cutting raw meat, you can't use that same cutting board for vegetables, like, or anything else that isn't raw meat, or you have to wash it at least, because obviously if you cut the vegetables, the raw vegetables with this meat, raw meat juices, you're gonna get sick because you can't eat raw meat. So yeah, pretty good stuff. And the temperature danger zone. I don't know Celsius. I almost said I don't speak Celsius. I use Fahrenheit. So I'm sorry for this because there's gonna be a lot of temperatures, and I know a lot of you guys probably use Celsius. I should learn it, but I don't, and all of my education is in Fahrenheit, so I'm sorry, but the temperature danger zone is from 41 to 135 degrees, and basically what that means is anything sorry, my head got really itchy. So basically it's a scale. So like with meat has to be higher than because they need to be frozen. And at 41 degrees, they're not going to be frozen or refrigerated. They're going to be, so basically from 41 degrees to 135 degrees, that's where bacteria grows in that scale, which is a big scale. So with cold foods, you have to keep them at a certain temperature. Like, it has to be below 41 degrees, and then if you are making meat, use a thermometer. Okay, guys, people don't use a thermometer when they cook meat. Just use a thermometer, guys. It makes your life so much better, an electric thermometer. And if it's below 135 degrees, you can't eat it. The lowest temperature meat that you can eat is pork. Pork can actually be 140 degrees. And then chicken has to be 165 degrees. And beef has to be 155 degrees. And ground meats, I'm pretty sure, are 155 as well. So those are like the main meats. So chicken is the highest one, pork is the lowest one, but none of them can be below 135 degrees. So yeah, like for example, the other day when I was at work, I was looking through all of the fridges, I don't know if I've ever said that plural, that sounds weird, but I was looking through all of the fridges, and one of them was 42 degrees, and I was like, that's not good, because that's in the danger zone. It's dangerous now. So anyways, that's definitely a good thing to know. It's like temperatures and stuff. My mom, she has a little like picture or little chart of like all of the meat temperatures, because if you're not studying food, it's probably hard to remember, but for me, that's drilled in there. Anyways, the next thing I guess I'll teach you about is foodborne illness, because I'm also taking microbiology, and we learn about foodborne illness in there too, but like in an annoying way. I don't like biology. Anyways, so sorry, I forgot where I was headed. Foodborne illness. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about botulism, which you're probably not gonna get botulism, but I'm gonna tell you what it is. So botulism is, it can be caused by like canned foods, specifically green beans. So yeah, basically, I mean, it can be caused by like if you're canning your own foods, it's very specific. You have to get it to a certain temperature and a certain amount of pressure in the pressure cooker, so the bacteria doesn't grow in the can. But yeah, like any canned items, that's why you're not supposed to buy them if they have a dent in them or if they're open, because you can get botulism because bacteria can grow in there. Because when the can, like I guess, is closed, it seals it, and when it's dented, it could mess up like the whole atmosphere in the can, and you can get botulism. And what botulism is you can get muscle weakness, you can get blurry vision, you can get really, really sick. And botulism is like a very severe foodborne illness. And for some reason, I don't know why, it's usually in green beans, but you're probably not gonna find it in like canned tomatoes or canned pineapple, because they're very acidic. But yeah, it's always good to be aware of your cans and know that if they are dented, you can't eat those. And I actually thought that I had botulism one time because it was Thanksgiving and I had green bean casserole, was like, oh my god, I have botulism. But I don't know if I did, because the only symptoms I had were like just like normal foodborne illness, but I just thought because of the green beans and because it lasted so long that it could have been botulism, but I never found out. I did go to the doctor and I had to get my blood tested, like that's how bad it was. But yeah, they didn't find anything like specific. But another foodborne illness is salmonella, which I'm sure that we all know about that one, like cookie dough, you know. But yeah, salmonella is another type of foodborne illness that causes like puking. It's pretty common, and you can get it from raw eggs. You can also get it from raw flour, which is why a lot of like edible cookie dough, it's made with like no flour, or you have to bake the flour. It's not always from the eggs. Fun fact. So yeah, like what else can I teach you that's gonna be like actually interesting? I'm trying to think of like I'm putting myself on the spot here with all my knowledge. Okay, I can actually teach you a little bit about wine, because I'm very interested in wine. I don't really drink alcohol, but I do enjoy wine. And I just think learning about it is interesting. So I'm sure you've heard of like a dry wine, and I'm sure you know that a dry wine tastes very bitter and not very good. Probably if you've never had wine before, it's very bitter. It's a very taste. And the reason that it tastes like that is because it literally makes your mouth dry. So basically, how to know what type of wine or what the flavor profile is when you have a glass of wine, I will show you guys with a cup that I have. It's not wine, but you're basically supposed to swirl the wine around so it gets on the walls of the glass and it gets closer to your nose, so then, because obviously like if it's on the walls of the glass, that's closer than at the bottom, you know. So then you sniff it, and then the notes of the wine get like closer to your nose and they get stronger, so then you can actually smell them and you can kind of, you know, pick up some notes, you know, whether that's like berry or peach or whatever. And a lot of wines, if you look at the actual notes, will have like really random weird flavors or notes, like gravel. I've seen gravel guess something that I'm particularly interested in is like animal products. So I took a class all about like meat and animal products, like eggs, dairy, meat, and there's a few things that I could teach you about. So the first thing is, if you ever have in the styrofoam containers or however you buy meat in paper, whatever, and then you open it up and there's red juice at the bottom, it's not blood, it's the color, like the color of their muscles. So and it's called purge. Okay, that's a gross word, but it's called purge. So if they don't have a lot of the juice, so basically if a meat is older, or if it's really fresh, then it won't have a lot of that juice, and the color of the meat will be very dark, or not very dark, but red, and like a really appealing, I guess, color. But if it has a lot of juice in the bottom, then chances are the meat is going to be lighter in color, and it's going to be less juicy. And there was actually a study done where they hung meat up, like they hung it up, and they put it in like a Ziploc bag basically, and they measured how much juice came out of each cut of meat. And yeah, it's like a whole thing. I won't get too into it, but I think that's pretty interesting because at least I always thought that it was blood, but it's their muscle, like juice, and it gives their muscles the red color. So like beef, if it was drained of all the juice, then the meat would be like very, very light pink. So another thing is eggs. There is no difference between brown and white eggs. It's just the color of the chicken. So if a chicken is white, then they will have white eggs, and if a chicken is brown, they will have brown eggs. And you're probably like, oh, how do you know what color the chicken is? Their ears. So if they have white ears, then they're a white chicken. If they're brown, then they have brown ears, then they're a brown chicken. And that's the only difference between the eggs. A lot of people thought that brown eggs were healthier. They still do think that, but nutritionally there is no difference between the brown and the white egg. And I'm pretty sure that the reason for that is because I want to say like in the early 2000s, people were very concerned about cholesterol, and in eggs have cholesterol. So farmers started marketing brown eggs as like the healthier alternative because, you know, they needed to sell their eggs. But like there's genuinely no difference this is helpful if you're a vegetarian or if you don't like want to eat meat but you want to get enough protein. There are things called, I forgot the name, but it's basically where two pieces or no, I think it's two food items, they make a whole protein, which or total protein, a whole protein. I'm forgetting the words, oh my god. But basically, like I'm just gonna say whole protein. A whole protein is something